At Legality Viability, we aim at providing excellent services to our partners and ambitious students in order to help them achieve their goals. We launched our services on 1st April 2020, and since then we have been partnering with campuses all over India and growing day by day. We provide services like free lectures as well as notes which will help students with their studies. Furthermore, if I may, sir, I would like to give a brief introduction about you to our audience.
Sure.
Thank you. Sir is an Indian qualified lawyer specializing in the areas of technology law, human rights, and criminal law. He holds an LLM in information technology, media, and communication law from London School of Economics and Political Science, where he was also a member of teaching committee. He is an alumnus of Oxford Media Policy Institute and Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, India. Sir has also volunteered as the judge for the world rounds of prestigious moot court competitions like William C. Wiss International Commercial Arbitration Moot, Prize Media, Moot Court Competition, and many more. Sir's experiences and achievements are uncountable and inspirational for a lot of legal aspirants. Legality Viability is extremely obliged and would thank you for your precious time.
Thank you for the kind introduction, the very kind introduction, and it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. If you may allow, I would like to proceed with the questions.
Yes, please go on.
Thank you so much, sir. So, according to you, what is the right approach to be a part of all the institutions you have been as a student and as a research intern?
I assume by this question you mean the internships that I've done and the research organizations that I've been a part of. The way
Yes.
I chose my internships was we had a 2-month period during the summer. So I would do one internship which was aligned with my long-term plans, and I would do another internship where I was trying to explore a new area of law or a kind of office that I had not worked with in the past. This way, I ended up working with 2 sitting judges in the Supreme Court. I also had the opportunity of interning at an international arbitral institution. I worked across different courts, starting from trial courts in Delhi, going up all the way to the Supreme Court. And I also had the opportunity of working at a couple of research organizations. So it was a balance of pushing myself to do something I hadn't done before and figuring out that I was interested in litigation and research, and then pursuing that path, post the 3rd year.
Oh, okay, sir. That's really insightful. Okay, so it's often said that the corporate life and balancing the corporate life and the litigation is a very tedious process, and a lot of people are not able to do that. So, what is the right approach to maintain the balance between the professional life as a legal student and as a legal professional, and also having a personal life which keeps us motivated throughout?
Well, if you're living on campus, I know right now a lot of you are at your homes, and law school life is not half as fun as or enriching as what campus life would be. If you're on campus, I think it's fairly easy to strike that balance. I'm talking about personal experience because you are in a zone where you're with like-minded people. You're all driven to do the same things, and because timelines are such that you're following a college schedule and you're following a routine, you end up taking breaks at similar points in time. So I think it's a lot easier when you're on campus. Personally, law school, I'm somebody who likes to constantly be on the move, and I'm constantly finding the next project to work on. So I don't, and I'm not sure if this is the healthiest thing, but honestly, in law school, I was just keeping myself very, very busy. But now that I've become a working professional, it's, I'm trying to find ways to strike that balance. I still haven't struck that balance by any means. I still feel that it's very disproportionately favored towards me spending more time at work. So I'm trying, like all of us here, but I feel I'm still far away from hitting that balance.
I'm sure that whatever points you have given, that would have helped a lot of people. Furthermore, sir, this is one question which we get to ask a lot while we are giving interviews for the internships and when we have to write our SOPs. So, what was the driving force that encouraged you to take up law in college?
I feel I had a skill set that was that made me a decent candidate to go to law school. I was always reading. Even post school I was decent at public speaking, and I had the aptitude for, legal analysis and just getting down to the crux of a matter and then seeing it for what it is. The reason I chose law in addition to this was I always had an urge to do something in which I could use my skill set to bring about an impact. At one point, I was considering between journalism and law, but law just made sense in the larger scheme of things, as I think it's a great way for somebody to have a voice in society and bring about a change that you're hoping to see.
That's something I can relate to, because even I was confused between journalism and law. But yeah, law did make much more sense than journalism to me as well. Furthermore, sir, I believe you would be the right person to ask this question, and I'm myself very curious about it. What are your views on data privacy and artificial intelligence, especially when these two aspects are in a lot of controversies nowadays?
This is a area of law, we're talking about data privacy here, that is in a state of flux in India. And I feel, the Supreme Court has recognized informational privacy in the Puttaswamy judgment, but where this entire discussion will actually take a different course will be once we have a personal data protection legislation. We've had a bill in 2018, and that has been considered by select committees, and it's been, it's going through the stages of policy making at the moment. So I'm really sincerely hoping that we have a robust data protection regime soon, and I feel that will be the beginning of the right to privacy actually turning from an abstract right that it exists in India today into a concrete right that is capable of being enforced in easier ways for people who actually are for everybody. I don't think privacy is something for elites, or it is something for it is a concept to be only enjoyed by a few. I think privacy, as the Supreme Court has held, is a fundamental right to be enjoyed by every person in the country.
Exactly, so we all are hoping for that to happen soon. So, as you have judged a lot of prestigious moot court competition, my next series of questions are with respect to same, so that all the mooters who are listening to us can have a better understanding about it. So, what do judges expect from a candidate in such international moot courts, and what is the right way to approach the judge? Because there are different people from different countries, and there's one standard format which we follow in India, but that's not same as what another country or another judge would want us to say. So, and in those situations, what is the right way for a mooter to approach the bench?
So in terms of what judges are looking for, I think every judge, no matter which level, whether it's a national moot or an international moot, judges are looking for a very good knowledge of the law, and for you to be able to answer questions in the way, answer the exact question that is raised. So if you're able to address a judge's queries, if you're able to answer questions well, I think that is half the battle won. Because after a certain point, especially if you're competing in international moots, everybody has that thorough knowledge of the law. Everybody's a persuasive speaker. But I feel where one can differentiate themselves from the competition is where you start addressing judges' questions in a way that judges get the answer they're looking for, and they also seem like you're not trying to avoid the question. So that is something that I tell a lot of the teams that I interact with. In terms of how your preparation changes when you're at an international moot, it again depends on where that international round is happening, and a lot of other factors. So talking from my personal experience, I had participated in the Whiz East moot competition, and we decided, and we didn't have we didn't have a coach at the time, but we were told by the people we were interacting with that you actually should have a different strategy when you're going to Whiz East, and if you were going to Whiz Vienna, you should have a different strategy. So to begin with, first and foremost, when you're interacting with Indian judges, we're very fluent and we're very proficient with the English language. However, if you're talking to people from other jurisdictions, not only would they not have similar cultural context or the similar way of speaking, at often you'll also it's also advisable that you reduce the pace at which you're talking, and you do not make assumptions about a different country's legal system, because if you're at an international move, you will have judges both from common and civil law backgrounds. National rounds, your preparation strategy does change, and it's a long drawn preparation process, but it's one that really evolves your thinking as a lawyer.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering this question. So you were a part of institutions like National Human Rights Commission of India. So there are a lot of people who would want to be a part of such organizations, because first of all, it gives a very good exposure, plus it's very good and impressive on CV as well. So how did you become a part of these organizations, and what advice would you want to give to people who are willing to be a part of such organizations?
I'd interned with the NHRC in my second year of law school. It was a simple application process, and it was then many, many months of waiting. I chose the NHRC because I was keen on, at that point in time, I was, I was aware of the theoretical, I was aware of the theoretical body of knowledge behind many human rights, but I hadn't interacted with either stakeholders on the ground. And I just was very curious to see how the National Human Rights, the foremost human rights organization in the country, how that functioned. That is the reason I chose the NHRC. My advice to anybody who wants to apply to not just the NHRC but other organizations as well is to apply well in advance and to be persistent, and just follow up, because depending on what this holds true for whether you're applying to a corporate or whether you're applying to a government body. Perseverance and applying in time, they often are the difference between somebody whose application makes it and somebody whose application doesn't. So yes, give yourself a lot of time before you apply, write good cover letters, tailor your CVs for the organizations you're applying to, and that will ensure that the employer also knows that this is a application tailored for my organization, and this is not a general application that you're sending to every employer you're applying for an internship to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, sir. So my next question is, even after getting selected, so every law firm is different in how it operates. They have a different conduct. A corporate is different from a litigation firm. When you're working in the chambers of a lawyer, it's different. So what is expected of an intern when they are working in any organization, and how should they handle, and what approach should they follow when they are interning at any organization?
I think at the very least, an intern is expected to just have the willingness to learn, the willingness to work hard, and the willingness to deliver results in the way that an employer wants them to. In terms of how an intern can actually do that, my personal approach is always to ask, to not be afraid of owning up and saying, especially when I was in law school, of saying, this is something I haven't done before. I'm keen on learning. I'm happy to work hard, and I'm happy to talk to my colleagues and, learn. But it's something I don't know. So I just ask the right questions and just show that I'm a sincere law student who's here to learn, and who's here to get the most out of the experience and also give to the organization that I'm working with. So ask the right questions when you're doing an internship, or in fact, when you're doing any project, just be committed to the project and give it the seriousness it deserves. And, now that we deal with the interns across all different levels of law school, my one suggestion to you would be to know that you should not deliver a substandard quality of work thinking that I am just an intern. And there's somebody above me who's going to double check my work or who's going to ensure that my work is correct before it's submitted. The whole, if you take on more responsibility than you're given in terms of, you take on the responsibility of ensuring that your legal research or your legal writing is accurate, is precise, and it matches the quality of, let's say, a first year associate. That is more than what an employer is looking for. So that would be my suggestion to you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would really like to thank you for your time and answering to all the questions and all this discussion that we had. I would also like to thank the team of Legality Viability for organizing this insightful interview. And I'm sure a lot of students who will be watching this interview will be gaining a lot of insightful facts from this. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I could be here.
Thank you, sir.